Hello, Soden Bowl and Soden Bowl Network. As Sean likes to call it, the man, the myth, the legend of media, Ferreira Sr., Al Ferreira Sr., or Big Al, or Asshole, as my wife likes to call me. But anyway, I'm glad to be back in the Soden Bowl. Took a little bit of time off to collect my thoughts and come back. I wish I hadn't, but I did. It's a mistake. You learn from it and move on. Talked to Sean, said, hey man, I want to come back. I want to cover the league like we talked about. I want to do media. I want to do content. I don't necessarily want to play. Maybe down the road. Who knows in the future. I suck at this game, but I'm better at the media side of it. And I love doing it. Alpha did a podcast the other day. He brought back the Unfiltered podcast. I'm so excited for that. It's given me the motivation to get in and do this here today again. And hopefully continue to do so as the Soden Bowl Sim League grows. Soden Bowl League itself, if you haven't heard yesterday, it's not going to be around much longer, if at all, unfortunately. But the Soden Bowl Sim League is the future forefront of Soden Bowl. And if you haven't heard about it, check us out. Soden Bowl Sim LG is our Twitter. Come to the sodenbowl.com website. Check out the welcome page. There's an application you could click on here. Get that information. Check out the rules. Check out the social media. There's also a tab for the SBSL, which will give you any FAQs. The rewards page. Yes, we have a rewards program. Check that out. You could purchase things for players. It's pretty neat. There's a lot of things going on here with the Soden Bowl Sim League, so I invite you to check that out. I am so happy to be a part of it again, as I mentioned, and I'm happy to do a podcast that I'm going to call The Huddle, only on the Soden Bowl Network. I'm going to try to host it as often as possible, weekly if I can, or bi-weekly, but I got some time to do it, so that's what I'm going to do. What we're going to talk about on the show: team stats, player stats, rookie stats. Also going to talk about and have a little fun with the SBSL Fantasy Football League. A little bit about the league records, things like that they have going on, and the standings and the rankings, of course. So I'm going to get right to it. Hope you enjoyed the little intro. We'll come back and talk about team stats, player stats, and the rookie stats. Hang tight. All right, Soden Bowl Nation, Soden Bowl Network. I like that, Soden Bowl Nation. Take note of that, Sean. All right, we're going to talk about team stats, player stats, rookie stats. I'll try to do this as quickly but efficiently as possible without sounding like blah, 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 blah. But that's usually how I sound, unfortunately. I'm right to the point. I love stats. I love sheets. I love charts. I got so much of that stuff I could give to the league. Reach out if you need something. I'm here. Anyway, let's get started. Team stats. First up, who is leading in the SBSL on offense? New England Patriots with 383 yards per game. The Giants behind them at number 2 at 378.5. Jacksonville Jaguars at 362.9. The Los Angeles Rams at 346 yards per game as an offense. And rounding out the top 5 is the Carolina Panthers with 345.8 yards per game for the offense. Passing the ball on offense, the Giants leading the way with just shy of 300. They're 291.7. The Patriots behind them at 288.9. The Oakland Raiders, who are coming out of nowhere, 264 yards per game passing in the air. Drew Brees and the Saints at 259.3, and the Washington Redskins rounding out the top 5 in the passing yards per game at 258.2. Some close races there for the passing yards. Rushing the ball on the ground, team-wise yards per game, is the Baltimore Ravens with 118.10, Seattle Seahawks with 116, the Buffalo Bills with 110.2, Just shy behind them is the Kansas City Chiefs at 109.5. And rounding out the top 5 is the Miami Dolphins with 107.7 yards per game on the ground. We'll turn the ball over to the defensive side of things. Leading the way are the stout Broncos defense with 166 yards per game. That is the best in the SBSL league right now. And that is the only team under 200, by the way. Behind them is the Seattle Seahawks with 212, the Indianapolis Colts with 232.7, the Pittsburgh Steelers with 245.4. And rounding out the top 5 is San Francisco 49ers with 252.2 yards given up per game. Pretty good list there. Passing-wise, Broncos leading the way there. They've only given up 118 yards in the air. The Colts at 157, just over the Cleveland Browns at 157.5. Half a yard. Interesting. Seattle Seahawks at 172.3. Pittsburgh Steelers at 173 even. And finishing up with the defense is giving up rushing yards on the ground. The least amount would be the Seahawks at 39.7. Los Angeles Chargers at 45.8. The Philadelphia Eagles at 47.2. And the Denver Broncos at 48. New Orleans Saints at 51.2 rushing yards on the ground, rounding out the top 5 there. We'll go ahead and talk about the player stats. Next up, we got passing yards. Tom Brady has approached the 2,000 yard mark at 2,072 yards. Behind him, Derek Carr from Oakland at 1,959 yards. Matt Ryan from Atlanta, 1,672 yards, just above Drew Brees' 1,670 yards. Finishing out the top 5 is Alex Smith from Washington with 1,633 yards in the air. On the ground, Chris Carson from Seattle, 602 yards. Who is this guy? Tevin Coleman from Baltimore, 584. Josh Jacobs from Kansas City, 573. Leonard Fournette out of Jacksonville, 544. And rounding out the top 5, Melvin Gordon III with 444. Receiving yards, Marcus Lee of Jacksonville, 726 yards. That's a lot. Amari Cooper from Dallas, 674 yards. Behind him is Paul Richardson Jr. from Washington, 642. Another junior, this guy from the Giants, Odell Beckham Jr., 626 yards. And rounding out the top 5 in receiving yards in the SBSL is Tyreek Hill from Kansas City with 611. Turn it over to the defense. Who's got the most tackles so far throughout Week 7, halfway through about Week 7? Kendall Donnerson, Oakland, 36 tackles. Behind him is Deion Jones from Atlanta with 34. Matthias Farley out of Arizona with 32. His buddy Josh Bynes in Arizona, 31. Those guys are having a tackling battle. Michael Kendricks from the Chargers, 28, completing the top 5 in tackles. Sack-wise, Frank Clark from Seattle. Seattle's defense is pretty good. 13 sacks for Mr. Clark. Khalil Mack in Chicago with 12. He's tied with D. Ford in Kansas City with 12. Trey Flowers and Daniel Hunter also both have 11. They round out 4 and 5 on the top 5 list for sacks. Finishing up the player stats and interceptions is Devin White of San Francisco with 9. Jimmy Smith from Baltimore with 6. Jatavis Brown from the Chargers with 5. Rashard Jones of Miami. And Jaquiski Tart from San Francisco. Sorry, bud, I chopped that up. But Jones and Tart with 4 interceptions, rounding out the top 5 in the player stats. Moving right along to the rookie stats. Alpha talked a little bit about this in his podcast the other day and some of the rookies and who stood out with him. Here are the top 5s in passing, rushing, receiving, tackling, sacks, and interceptions. The rookies that stand out in the passing is Kyler Murray out of Miami. He's the only rookie right now with 1,000 yards in the air. That's 1,339 yards. Behind him is Jarrett Stidham. Sorry, Denver. 713 yards. Dwayne Haskins in Detroit, 155. Obviously not playing that much. Trace McSorley of Dallas, 128. Dallas mentioned as they needed a quarterback, and if I haven't heard just yet, a little bit of trade news here, but I believe Dallas is looking to get Stafford from the Lions. I don't know if that's been approved yet, but we'll see. Clayton Thorson from Houston, 101 in the air. On the ground, Josh Jacobs from Kansas City, the rookie, 573 yards, leading the way for the rookies. And talked about earlier, he's third on the rushing list in the league as a rookie. Darwin Thompson from Buffalo, 326 yards. Benny Snell Jr. from Tampa Bay, 266 yards. Darrell Henderson from Carolina, 259 yards. And David Montgomery of Jacksonville with 198 yards on the ground. Receiving yards, Riley Ridley of Arizona with 389, 1 yard above the man who could play probably any position on defense, DK Metcalf of Baltimore, 388 yards. Tommy Sweeney of New Orleans, 352. Hunter Renfrow from Tampa Bay, 322 yards in the air. Irv Smith Jr. out of Houston, 294 yards. Turning the ball over to the rookies and the defense, Chris Johnson of Oakland leading the way with tackles with 27. Behind him is Josh Allen of Oakland with 22. Could this be the reason why Oakland's come out of nowhere? Doesn't explain the passing attack. Two rookies on Oakland leading in tackles, 27 and 22. Behind him is Deontay Thomas from Tampa Bay with 20. Hamp Cheevers from Buffalo with 19. And Devin White rounding out the top 5 in tackles from San Francisco with 17. Top 5 in sacks, Polite from Carolina with 6. He's tied with Jefferson from Miami, Zach Allen from Jacksonville, and Quinnen Williams from Buffalo, all with 6. Just shy of that, Osain X-Mines from Tennessee with 5. I'm chopping these names up. I'm sorry. Oh well. Interceptions. Rookies. Devin White, San Francisco, has himself 9 interceptions, and he's also top 5 in rookies and tackles with 17. Julian Love from Indy with 4. DeAndre Baker from Jacksonville with 3. Byron Murphy from Minnesota with 2. And Greedy Williams. Perfect name to be in New York with the name Greedy. Mr. Williams for the Jets has 2 interceptions himself. Well, that rounds out the top team stats, top player stats, and top rookie stats. I'm going to take a break here and come back with a little bit of fun with the Soden Bowl Sim League Fantasy Football. All right, I'm back. Soden Bowl Sim League Fantasy Football. Daddy League's inserted a new feature for Fantasy League, which shows you weekly points. I believe it's the way it is. So I'm just going to have a little fun and just talk about it like as if, you know, the NFL talks about their fantasy football. Well, SBSL also has a fantasy football. So, if you've had Josh Rosen, he got you 31 points this week in passing. Behind him was Tom Brady from New England with 19. Matt Ryan from the Atlanta Falcons had 18 points. Derek Carr had 17. Aaron Rodgers with 16. Those are some of the names you would think that would be at the top of your fantasy football team if you had them in real life now. Maybe not Josh Rosen, but Tom Brady, Matt Ryan, Derek Carr, Aaron Rodgers, for sure. Rushing leaders, Ito Smith out of Atlanta with 22 points this week. Saquon Barkley from the Giants with 15. Tevin Coleman from Baltimore with 13. Marshawn Lynch in Dallas. Marshawn Lynch is still playing football? 12 points for Marshawn Lynch. Must have had some Skittles before the game. And Mitch Trubinsky, isn't he a quarterback? He had 11 points rushing in fantasy football. Well, if you had Mitch Trubinsky starting, That's a surprise. I wonder how many points. Let's take a look. Passing leaders, complete list. Trubinsky, not even in the top 12. Sad. Anyway, moving along. Receiving leaders, Marquess Lee from Jacksonville, 45 points. I think that's the most fantasy points out of anyone this week, including a defense. Julio Jones from Atlanta, not a surprise, 26 points. Jace Sternberger from New England. Sternberger, 21 points. Odell Beckham Jr., not a surprise, with 19. And Evan Ingram from the New York Giants as well with 15. The battle for fantasy points there. If you're a Giants fantasy owner, you picked yourself up some points this week. Defensive leaders, Jadeveon Clowney. Jadeveon Clowney. There we go. 14 points for him today, or this week. Kendall Donaldson from Oakland with 13. Leonard Floyd from Chicago with 12. Jimmy Smith from Baltimore with 11. And Jake Ryan from Green Bay with 10. Finishing this up, and I'm not sure if I really like this feature, so let me know. I don't know, it's kind of boring. Kicking leaders, Jonathan Brown from Oakland with 8. Mason Crosby from the Giants with 13. Justin Tucker from Baltimore with 12. And Greg Zerlin from Chicago and Josh Lambo from Jacksonville with 10. All right, jumping right out of this. That was boring. Anyway, moving right along, league standings. This is what I love to talk about, is the league standings. This tells me who's good, who's not so good, and who might need to step it up a little bit. So, let's start with the AFC East, which is one of my favorite divisions because I'm a Jets fan. If you haven't known that, now you do. I know. Feel bad for me. I get it. AFC East, leading the way is the Dolphins at 5-1. 5-1 the Dolphins are right now. 28 points scored against 18 given up. At 5-1. 10-point difference there. The Jets, my Jets. Shanks and the Jets, 3-2. 3-2, but they've given up 20 points and only scored 19 on average. So that's got to change. That's got to be stepped up a little bit. The Bills are 3-2. They've given up 20 points and have scored 22 points. I'm getting this backwards. The Patriots are 2-5. Sorry. Nothing personal to the Patriots owner, but I'm a Jets fan. Can't stand the Patriots. I'm throwing a party the day Brady retires. And hopefully, finally, the Jets will win or get to a Super Bowl. I just want them to get to a Super Bowl while I'm alive. Anyway, moving on. AFC West. The Chargers are surprising the AFC and the whole entire Soden Bowl Sim League at 6-0. I believe they are the only undefeated team right now. Yes, looking at the standings, that is correct. The Chargers, 6-0. The Raiders, 4-3. They're coming out of nowhere. The Chiefs are 3-3, and the Broncos are also 3-3. This division is so tight, it's probably one of the best divisions to keep an eye on in the AFC, in my opinion. AFC North, the Steelers are 3-2. The Ravens are 4-3, so that's a close watch there to see what the Steelers do. The Bengals and Browns are both 1-5, but, I mean, they're the Bengals and Browns. Browns got a good squad. They're a young team, but scoring 10 points on average and giving up 21 is not going to get it done. AFC South, Jaguars 5-2, Colts 4-2, Titans 1-5, and the Texans 0-6. That explains the whole Watson-Jackson deal. Lamar Miller's gone. I mean, this is a whole revamp here. This is a whole rebuild. They had the team there. I don't know. Let's go to the NFC East. The Cowboys are 5-1. The Eagles are 4-1. The Giants are 4-2, and the Redskins 1-5. That division's always tight with those teams. You never know. In this case, the Redskins might slightly be out of it this time, but we'll see. NFC West, the Seahawks are 5-1. The Rams are 3-2. The 49ers are 3-3. and the Cardinals are 0-6. In the NFC North, the Vikings are 3-3, the Packers are 3-3, the Bears are 3-3, the Lions 0-6. Surprisingly enough, the Lions still have a chance to win that division. If you think about it, they're 3 games out. I don't currently know what their division record is right now, but 8 points scored on average and giving up 27. That explains the 0-6. Some work to do in Detroit. NFC South, the Saints are 4-2, the Broncos are 3-2, the Panthers are also 3-2, and the Falcons are 3-4. This is my NFC division to watch, just like the AFC West is. The NFC South is the division to watch here, leading up to the trade deadlines that's coming up next week in Week 8, and also for the playoff picture. So let's finish up the show real quick here with the power rankings. Now, I've highlighted a few teams here on the list. Yellow are my standouts. Greens are my standouts for not so good. So, excuse me. Leading the power ranking right now, believe it or not, according to Daddy Leagues, would be the Dallas Cowboys at 5-1. Their previous rank was 8th. Now they're 1st. So that's a jump of 7. Now that's good, but you should see what some of these other teams have done. Now, the Chargers are 6-0. In my opinion, they should be number 1. I mean, they're undefeated. Why would they be number 2? But I know there's a whole rating system behind that. I've personally made my own ranking system through DL Jose's rankings and my own personal rankings. It's pretty involved, but mine also includes the strength of schedule that's on Daddy Leagues. I don't know if his does. Him and I have talked about it. I don't know if he's implemented it, but I'm just, for the sake of argument and for the sake of time, I'm just going to go with what the power rankings are on Daddy Leagues. And Dallas is number 1 at 5-1. Los Angeles is number 2 at 6-0. But here's the biggest shocker. At 5-1, the Miami Dolphins jump from number 20 to number 3. That's a 17-point swing. Great job, Dolphins. Behind them is the Seahawks, Eagles, and Colts at 4, 5, and 6. Here's another surprise to me. Again, we talked about him earlier. Alpha mentioned it in his podcast. Again, check out the Unfiltered podcast by the Alpha Hill 7. I'm so glad you brought that back, buddy. Oakland Raiders at number 7. Guys, previous rank, 31st. They were damn near the last team in the league. They're now 7th. That's the biggest point swing in the rankings, other than a downfall of 25 points, which we'll get to, the Texans. 24 points up from last week. The Oakland Raiders at 4-3 are 7th on the list, previously ranked 31st. Great job with that team there. Jaguars, 5-2, are ranked 8th right now in the SBSL rankings. Previous rank was 26. Now they're 8th. That's an 18-point jump. Great job, guys. Behind them is the Saints and Rams at 9 and 10. That rounds out the top 10 is the Cowboys, Chargers, Dolphins, Seahawks, Eagles, Colts, Raiders, Jaguars, Saints, and Rams. In that top 10, 2 teams took a big fall, but not out of the top 10. The Saints, who were number 1 last week, are now 9. That's an 8-point difference. The Rams, who were number 3, are now 10th. That's a 7-point difference. So moving into the next group of 10 would be 11 through 20. 2 teams that stand out for me at 11 and 12 are the Giants and the Jets of New York City. The New York Giants, the G-Men, and the Jets. The Giants are 4-2. They were 27th on the list last week, and now they're 11th. That's a 16-point jump. The Jets are 3-2. They were 29th last week. Now they are 12th on the list. That's a 17-point jump. Dropping 1 spot behind them is the Steelers, who was 12th last week, and they're now 13th. The Bills are at 14. The Panthers are at 15. The Bucks are at 16. The Vikings are at 17. The Ravens are at 18th. The Chiefs. This is where I want to start talking about some of the downfalls. The Chiefs last week were ranked second. Now they're 19th. That's a 17-point drop in the standings. They're not out of the top 20, but they are 19th. Behind them is the San Francisco 49ers. They are 3-3 as well. Their previous rank was 30th. They did jump 10 spots to number 20 to get into the top 20. Moving on to the bottom half of the rankings, 21 through 32. The top three are easy: Falcons, Broncos, Packers. Not much has changed where they were from last week to this week. Next, I want to talk about the Chicago Bears. They were 4th in the rankings last week. They are now 24th on this list. That's a 20-point drop. I mean, there are only 3-3. I mentioned that division's everybody's almost right there. The Lions are 0-6, but still, they do have a chance. Behind them is the Patriots. They were 6th on the list last week, and now they're 25th. That's a 19-point drop. That's big. Behind them is 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, and 31. It's the Bengals at 26, the Titans at 27, the Redskins at 28, the Browns at 29, the Lions at 30, the Cardinals at 31, and last but not least, previously ranked 7th on the list last week in power rankings, the Houston Texans dropped to 32. A 25-point drop. The biggest difference on the list this week is the Texans. It's a rebuild. Maybe I could get him on and we could do an interview and talk about what's going on there, what his thinking is. Again, I am nobody to talk about how to manage a team. I can manage the shit out of a team, but I just can't play the game. Anyways, Texans are turning around. Keep an eye on them and see what they do. I mean, it's not a bad team. They got the players in place. We'll see what happens. Well, Soden Bowl Sim League, that's all I got for you this time on the Huddle. I'm your host, Al Ferreira, a.k.a. Ferreira Sr. I hope you guys enjoyed this first episode that I put together. I'm looking forward to doing another one in next week or the week after. Some of the stats and stuff that I talk about probably won't change much, so maybe we'll get into some other things, some other topics. If you guys have any ideas, please hit me up, whether it be in chat or on Twitter. You could follow me at Ferreira_Senior, and that's F3RRIRASR at Twitter, whatever it is. Hit me up. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. All right, just to finish some things up here on my outro. I might have made some mistakes. I might have messed up some things, like just recently my Twitter handle. It's Ferreira Senior. It's at F as in Frank 3 RR 3 IRA _ SR. I know somebody else had my name, believe it or not. Fadeda is like Smith in America. But anyway, I had fun doing this. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm looking for feedback. It's been a while for me since I've been recording. I got a few different things on my plate that I'm doing that I want to get to the league as quickly as possible. So give me some time. Give it some time for me to get my bearings back together on these podcasts and such. I want to get some guys available to maybe do like an interview, something like that. I'm not really going to go live yet with things. Going to pre-record and then bring it out to the community. So it's probably going to be on Wednesdays, most likely, with a little help from Soden and Alpha Heel himself. We'll get this together and I'll get you guys some good content on a regular basis. And again, thanks for having me back in the Soden Bowl. I'm a league source. If there's something you need to say that you don't know how to say it, let me know. Come to me quietly. I'm not going to disclose anybody's information. I'm just looking to make it like a league that has breaking news and knows some inside stuff. And then when it breaks, we're having fun with it. It's a sim league. It's what we want to do. It's a new time for the Soden Bowl here. And I'm happy to be a part of it. I can't say it enough. Again, hope you guys enjoyed it. Take care. See you next time. I'm out.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.